I just want to thank you all for staying for so long. I know you guys are, it's a Thursday night, and I'm sure you could all be grading some papers somewhere like me. But those papers are still in my bag. Maybe we'll have some time tonight, and it's probably also your bedtime like it is for me. But thank you for staying, and thank you for being great teachers. You guys are doing a really great job. So I want to talk to you tonight about my experience with the flipped classroom. So first, let's talk about what is a flipped classroom. If you haven't heard of this term before, it's a term developed by Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams, two chemistry teachers in Highland Park, Colorado. And it was made a little bit more famous by Salman Khan with the use of his videos for the Khan Academy. It's the idea that you can replace direct instruction with a lesson video that students view on their own time. And this leaves open the room for using class time for more collaborative work. Why did I flip? I had a lot of problems with face-to-face instruction. I'm a middle school teacher. And I found that when students were absent, they didn't get the quality of instruction that they had if they were there. They oftentimes had to get their work from another student, and the student only conveyed procedural knowledge and not conceptual knowledge. I have, weirdly, a lot of students with eyesight problems. I don't know if that's like a 13-year-old issue, but like every 13-year-old is developing eyesight problems, it seems like, in my classroom. So there wasn't enough space in the front of my class so that these students were able to see the board, which is a really fundamental problem. I also had problems with students taking notes at different speeds, and we sort of want to move on to the next slide because the kids who are not taking notes very well, they become distractors for other kids. But then that young man or woman who's in your class who's taking meticulous notes, which is such a great skill, they're left out in the cold because you have to move on to the next slide. There's a lot of processing problems with kids taking notes and then trying to process the information. It just actually uses different parts of your brain, so it's really difficult for them to arrive at the questions because they're just taking notes in your class. And there's also a lot of distractions in a middle school classroom. Why would they want to listen to me when there's like a pretty cool person and their best friend next to them? So why am I even really here? So there's this real difference between the ideal learning conditions and the reality. The expectation is that we teach and that students practice and that they come in the next day and you can discuss all these multiple pathways of solutions, and it's so wonderful and they can talk about it. But what I saw was that these classroom problems that I was having led to frustration at home, led to the inability to practice, and also parents being frustrated because they're like, what is this Common Core business? It's not the way I learned it. And then they're sort of undermining this new process that we're trying to teach them. They're not trying to do this they're doing the best they can. But then the kids come in and they're, half the class is ready to talk about these solutions and they're excited about it and I'm excited about it. And then the other half of the class can't follow it because I didn't do the practice. This led to instructional gaps, and it led to more classroom problems for me. My classroom now, students are motivated to engage in discussion, We start the day with them telling me what they learned. It's a really powerful way of operating in a classroom, right? They really take charge of telling me exactly what they were excited about from the lesson video. We have time for these important conversations. Weirdly, middle school students love theoretical math ideas. So when you talk to them about like irrational numbers, they're like, what? This number goes on forever, but it has a finite amount? Like, I don't understand that. And we have time to talk about those things. Whereas before, I didn't really have that much time to get off topic. Or it wasn't really off topic, right? But it was, you get the point. I can support my students when they practice, which is so important. What I do best is I scaffold. That's my job. I'm really good at that. Parents and other kids aren't as good at that. So that's really nice for me to be there when they're practicing. Students make good decisions about working independently and working collaboratively, which I think is very important for 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds to learn how to do. Anybody, really. We have a lot of time to do more fun math things in class, like playing games, because a lot of the direct instruction has already occurred. So we don't have to take time to do that. So let's talk about how I did it. So I'm talking about 4 things right here: how I recorded, how I edited, and how I stored and checked. So in year 1, I used my iPad with an app called Doceri. It captured my keystrokes and my voice. It was kind of a pretty rudimentary system, and you'll see in a second what the videos look like. In year 2, I really stepped it up a little bit more. I wanted the functionality of my laptop, so I bought a tablet that connected to my laptop. And so I got a lot more of the programs that I could use a lot more of the programs on my laptop. I also bought, these are all with grants from MphA America, our classroom resource grants. I bought a editing software called Camtasia Studio that allowed me to create quizzes. In year 3, this is really, I've really done a lot more things. This is my desk at school. I've bought a podcast microphone. I still use the tablet, and now I use the webcam, which is something that Bergman and Sams really suggest that you do. If kids can see your face while they're talking, while they're watching lesson video, it's really proven to engage them a lot more. Okay. So this is what my videos look like in year 1. You can see there's a lot of space on the left and the right. That it's kind of an inefficient use of space, but that was the dimensions of the Docere program. In year 2, I was able to put a lot more of the graphing calculator things in because I could use a simulator on my computer. So that was a really nice part for me. So students could use that as a resource at home when they were trying to practice using their graphing calculator. They can go back to the videos. And I'll just give you a snippet of what this is, my year 3 video. Let's make sure.
So all of the points on this line, there's an infinite amount of little tiny points, even points that don't fall along the intersection of 2 grid lines, right? There is this point, there's this point, there's this point.
So you get the picture that I can zoom in, you see my face. It's kind of funny to hear myself talk. It's also funny when parents come in for parent-teacher conferences. I've never met them, and they already seem to know me, my voice and my face, which is really so great. But I've increased a lot of, the videos look a lot slicker. I think that really has helped my students engage with them a little bit more. Anytime I make a mistake, which I've gotten a lot better at going through and editing it, because God knows how many mistakes you make, right? I put up a little pop-up here that says like, whoops, I meant 3 and not 6, So that's been really nice. So that's what my videos have looked like over the past few years. Now, the storing and checking process has become a lot easier over this past summer. So my first year, what I did was I used Edmodo, like Liz was talking about, fantastic social networking site. I would embed the video inside of a quiz in Edmodo. I could tell whether or not the students had taken the time to watch. So up on the upper left-hand corner, you see this person has taken 34 minutes, probably for, this was a 10-minute video, so she's taking notes as well. Because YouTube is blocked in school, I also created a Vimeo link, so if kids did not watch it at home, they could also watch it in school. Okay. What that didn't tell me, by the way, was whether or not they just let the video run out. So I had to really check their notes and make sure that they were actually watching it, which actually didn't really, they could have still cheated that system too because they could just get the notes from somebody else, but it's a little harder. Now, year 2, I used a package from TechSmith. It allowed me to upload playlists. It also sent me a spreadsheet. It told me how much students watched because they had filled their first, last name, and email in. So that was really important. It told me, their watching habits too, which is like, why are you watching this at 3 a.m.? I don't understand what's going on. Okay, in year 3, Edpuzzle and another great program has come online called EduCanon. I like Edpuzzle a lot because it runs across cell phones, and a lot of my students access the videos with cell phones. I teach in a pretty, a lot of our students are free or reduced lunch students, so having internet can be an issue sometimes with them. So if they have a cell phone, they can run the videos across a cellular network, which is really important. Edpuzzle allows me to view the progress of my classes, and it gives me data on how students are watching the video and how many times they've replayed it. It's a really nice free program. It's fantastic. There's some problems that arose over the 3 years, and I would like to talk about those and the solutions that I came up with. So year 1 comes, and it's really great, and the kids have all watched it, and they come in and they're talking. I'm like, oh wow, the kids are really talking. This is really great. And then I'm like, wait, the kids are really talking. And let me think about whether or not that's effective. And so I started looking at the communication that they were having, and some of it was really great, and some of it was really, they were arguing about solutions, which was really great. But what I found sometimes was that my weaker students weren't persisting with the harder problems, because what they were doing was they were looking at the person next to them and they were asking them, like, how'd you get that problem, right? And instead of the person next to them really scaffolding, which is what I'm really good at, they were just giving them the answer. So in year 2, I was like, okay, well, let me try to promote independent practice a little bit more. Okay, so year 2 comes along. They're practicing more independently. We have these, we meet up at the beginning. They do a review, and they independently practice in the class. Well, in year 2, I was like, well, what type of collaboration should I now build back in? Because now they're working independently. How should I do that? And now in year 3, I really have thought about the balance between independent practice, which we all know is really important, right? We need to sit and think about these problems by ourselves before we think about doing them collaboratively. And so now I'm really building in a collaboration piece, usually towards the end of class. And what I found is that there's a lot more solutions that get fleshed out this way, right? Like kids have thought about these problems individually, and now they're able to sort of come back together and think about, well, no, I didn't do it that way, but I did this another way, which is really nice. I was really worried that students weren't engaged while they were watching the lesson. It's very easy for you to tell whether a student is engaged or not in a classroom. But while they're at home, how can you tell? How can you ensure that they're really watching the lesson videos the way they should be? I use note-taking as a fundamental piece in my classroom. So this is a young lady's notes. We really talk about the nitty-gritty of note-taking. How do you annotate? How do you use highlighters? How do you use Post-its? What's the quality? How many notes should you take? There's questions that occur intermittently, and Edpuzzle is really great because it allows me to write in LaTeX, so I can put in a lot of the mathematical notation. The level of questioning is really great, and it allows me to see. I had a previous picture where it showed you. It allowed me to see how each student answered each question, which is really nice. And finally, Edpuzzle blocks skipping, so they cannot skip ahead. And it even recognizes when you open another tab, and it will stop the video for you. Again, there's ways to get around it, but not a lot of people have figured it out. In this structure, I really struggled with what my role was going to be. So year 1 was like, okay, I don't want to be the center of this classroom anymore. How do I get my students to really focus on what they can achieve from this structure? And then I did that so effectively that in year 2, I was like, wait, what do I do now? Because these kids are really running this classroom, and that's really great because that's kind of what I wanted, but I've got to believe that I have a role in this classroom, right? Like, I have to believe that there's some benefit of me speaking in front of the class. Like, how much should I be speaking, right? And so in year 3, I really try to use my time in the front of the classroom as, I'm making the most of the 15 to 20 minutes I'm there at the beginning of class and at the end of class. And I'm really trying to think, how much should I be there? And what is my role? So the takeaways are, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and I'm not going to lie to you, it is so much work, but it is super rewarding. I have found it to be absolutely rewarding. I have a lot more control about how things are taught, okay, where I didn't feel like that before. My classroom time is much more efficient. Differentiation is a lot easier because they're doing it right there. They're doing the practice right in front of me. Students find this structure to be super helpful. They take control over their own learning because they can pause and rewind and rewatch the video. They come into classroom, they know exactly what they want to do, and they get their work done a lot more effectively. I can see them as they study, and I'm there right when they start to become ineffective at their studying. And I say, listen, I don't think that music that you're listening to is going to help you that much. Let's talk about what's a good playlist when you're listening, because right now my students are allowed to listen to music while they work. And it's really important to understand that you get better at it the more you do it. So don't be scared of doing it, because what I found is across these 3 years, there's been problems that have arisen for my students. It may not be problems for your students, but I found solutions as I went along. Thanks.